Regarding the whole Wayland support in Unity, it looks like as of the 2023 version, there is experimental support.
Yeah. Um, I haven't tried the 2023 version yet because I don't think the LTS of it. Actually, yeah, the LTS wasn't out yet because
Right.
it's still not out. They're actually not doing 2023 LTS. It's all changed.
Mhm.
Now it is Unity 6000.0.4, which is actually Unity 6 preview, and it's
Okay.
super confusing, and I tried it and it was a buggy mess and socially distant, so I went back to 2021 LTS, where I know things work.
Right, that's fair. That's fair. Yeah, I guess if you are building a game over a long length of time, it probably makes a lot more sense to stick back with like a known working version rather than using something which, might possibly be better, but hasn't really hit that point of maturity yet.
Yeah. Sometimes I do like to do the engine upgrades, typically with like new LTS builds of the same year, because they do have bug fixes, obviously.
Sure.
They don't fix many of the bugs that I actually care about, but a bug fix is a bug fix.
Right.
But sometimes I do like to upgrade to actual newer year versions of Unity, and Unity 6 in particular, because I don't know how well you know about the whole runtime fee thing that happened, but part of what happened with that is when they walked that back, they actually, it's kind of a way to win back a lot of the trust of people like me who are on the personal edition. They actually took away the annoying made with Unity splash screen that you're forced to have, and they increased the maximum amount of revenue you're allowed to make per year before you have to go to Unity Pro, and then it just completely dropped Unity Plus. And the way Unity licensing works is, at least historically, the license you agree to doesn't change unless you upgrade your engine version to a new year. So I'm on the 2021 LTS license for personal, so I'm stuck with the splash screen and all that stuff. But when I go to Unity 6, it's going to be a new license, and I'm going to be able to turn it off and make my own, because I don't mind showing off that my game's made in Unity, but I'd rather show it off in my own art style.
Right.
I'd rather not just have it be a splash screen that's just shoehorned in.
Every single Unity game that is using that version just has that exact same splash screen.
Yeah.
So, I think, from my understanding, like the way they changed it is fairly similar now to the way that Unreal works, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I'm not too familiar with the new versioning scheme. I'm also not a fan of it because right now it's kind of in this weird transitional period where if you go to download Unity from Download Archive, it shows up as 6,000, and then none of the other numbers make sense. Like, what does 0 mean? Because 1 used to mean like the beta channel, and then 2 was your regular kind of testing / preview channel, and then 3 was LTS. It was logical. And then it was basically reverse car model. So Unity 2021 LTS came out in 2022. Really simple, but now it's just a mess right now, and it's confusing. And yeah.
Oh, I see what you mean. Okay, so 2023. Okay, yeah, 2023 used the old numbering scheme. Now it's 6,000. So we have 6,000.02, 6,000.01. And then 6,000.00. Okay.
Yeah.
Huh.
And it's really confusing because that happened like a couple weeks ago, and when I last checked that page, it was still 2023, and it's like, what the hell is going on over there?
Right. I see the issue then. So, I know it's like really old news now, but what was that like when the whole Unity stuff came out? Because back then, you were at Trixel already, yeah?
Yeah. Trixel, we were a little bothered by it just because everyone was bothered by it.
Sure,
But
sure.
we were just like, yeah, we're gonna weather the storm. This game's a Unity game. It's been a Unity game for years.
Hmm.
There's no time, no point in porting it to another engine.
Right, right, right.
But with Socially Distant, I was like, I could probably port this in a week. Let's find another game engine. Because I was very against it. I was very against the idea of being charged per install, because you know what's going to happen there.
Yeah, troll
Someone's
installs,
going to
yeah.
pirate your game, or someone's going to
Mhm.
troll you if they hate you, and they'll install it, then delete it, then install it, then delete it, or they have
Yeah,
like
who
50
who
computers, and
cares
it's like,
about review bombing when you have install bombing?
yeah, and it's not something I wanted to deal with. And then I
Mhm.
was like, I don't know how that's going to work for me.
Mhm.
Obviously, it's still an issue, and they have walked a lot of it back since then, but
Mhm.
it's a lot better to grasp now than it was at first. They totally dropped the ball at first, but
Mhm.
it's they got rid of the whole multi-install thing. They
Mhm.
clarified that it's the first install on a device that you pay for, that you pay the fee on,
Mhm.
and obviously they kind of changed the whole revenue structure of it's royalty based, and also there's the install fee if you hit a certain threshold, and then they
Mhm.
dropped Unity Plus. They increased the threshold for personal. It's not perfect, but it's a lot better now, and I just decided to stick with Unity because I know Unity well, and like Trixel, my game's been in Unity for years.
Mhm. Mhm.
I can do a port in like a reasonable amount of time, but I would need to learn a new game engine, and with me and my blindness, it's easier for me to bite the bullet and stay with Unity.
Right,
And
right.
yeah, like I tried Godot and I tried Unreal. I did try another game engine and actually managed to find some bugs in that one. It was called Flax. It's kind of like Unity. It
Flax?
has it's a lesser known one,
Mhm.
but it's an in development game engine. It has a very similar interface to Unity and how you use it,
Mhm.
but it's all open source, and I found a lot of bugs in it that have been fixed, thankfully. But and I just ended up going back to Unity because, yeah.
Right, right, right. So, of the engines you did try, did you find one that you actually would have been happy to port the game to, or was it just like, yeah, Unity sucks right now, but I guess let's just see where this goes because nothing's any better. Like they're better without having the runtime fee, obviously, but not better in terms of what they offer and the tech they have.
Yeah, it's a bit of both. Godot was no, I don't like Shady Script. There is the .NET version of it.
Mm-hmm,
I'm a C# developer. I always will be.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
It's not going to change. But the .NET tooling is not quite there, or at least it wasn't when I tried.
mm-hmm,
And Godot, its editor UI does this really weird thing. It kind of DPI scales on its own,
mm-hmm.
and that doesn't sound like a problem. But for me, the most important thing is that my font size is consistent across applications.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
My if I zoom in 2,000%, and if you think that's overkill, well, you don't know me well. 2,000% in Discord, it should look the same as zooming in 2,000% to my game engine. It should be just as readable. And unfortunately, Godot, the font was huge when I'd zoom in that much. And it was like, I'd have to zoom out of Godot to be able to fit things on screen. And then when I switch back to my code editor, I'd have to zoom back in to read my code. And it's like, I don't want to do that.
Yep, yep.
Then there was Unreal. Unreal was nice. I love its UI toolkit. I've been using Unreal off and on since Unreal 4.7, so it's been like at least a decade.
Mm-hmm,
Um, and I love Unreal's UI editor because it's very drag and drop. There's like built-in support for animation and tweening, and it's got a lot of layout elements. Like it almost feels like using something like GTK or Qt,
mm-hmm.
in how you put UIs together, and it's fully visual, which sounds counterproductive when I'm blind, but I have my ways. Whereas Unity is very hacked together and very difficult to use
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
effectively. Um, The problem with Unreal, though, is I could put a great UI together, sure, but I'd build the game, and it would be like 300 to 600 megabytes in size for what's basically like, I don't know, a wallpaper.
Right.
And a panel and a terminal. Like, I didn't do a full port. There wasn't a lot of stuff in the game. And then I started comparing engines, and in all three of the engines that I tried, Unity, Unreal, and Flaps, I put nothing in the game build. Just a black scene, nothing else. And I hit build. And Unreal was still, like, borderlining 150 megs. With just a black screen.
Is that the Unreal boilerplate there, or is that something you would expect to expand as you build more onto the game?
I was mostly just testing boilerplate, yeah. So obviously you have all of your libraries and dependencies to make the game engine be a game engine, but then there's other kinds of data like scene data and stuff like that. And just the way things get packed in Unreal, it results in a larger build with a black screen than in something like Unity, which is weird. I don't know why, but I guess it is what it is. And then, obviously, I was also switching between Windows and Linux back then. I think back then I was doing like the QEMU setup with Windows and a virtual machine on another GPU. Unreal on Linux is a pain in the ass. Anyone who has had to use Unreal on Linux knows that. You have to compile it from source. And it is like,
wait, really?
On most computers, it is worse than compiling the kernel. It's going to take 6 hours, and you need a lot of RAM to do it. And with Unreal 5, what you end up is a completely unreadable mess because the font scaling is fucked. And then, for whatever reason, I got some weird compile error because like Visual Studio was missing on Linux. And Unreal is C++, so like you need your toolchain working, otherwise your game is not going to build and you're not going to get an editor. It's not like Unity where you can go in and there are compiler errors, but you can still drag things around and like test things. Unreal, if you have compile errors in C++, you're fucked.